Otis Sanford is ABC24 political analyst. Chris Tudor is a former chairman of the Shelby County Republican Party. And Reverend Kenneth Whalen is pastor of the New Olivet Worship Center. Tomorrow, Officer McKinney is going to be buried. There will be a huge funeral for him held by Hope Church, which is kind of a side story. That congregation, the way they step up every time there is an event like this is always very admirable to me. But anyway, but as I mentioned in the introduction there, Otis, there are so many questions and new revelations that seem to be just fueling more questions. And you and I were talking earlier, the police at some point really need to have an accounting of what happened.
No question about it. I mean, there have been a lot of twists and turns here. The initial belief was that the shot that killed Officer McKinney came from one of these two teenagers. That turned out apparently not to be the case. It was friendly fire, as you said. Also, you had D.A. Mulroy saying that he strongly opposed the release of the 18-year-old when it turns out that his assistant DA said he didn't have any problem with it, would not be upset. Yes, what we need right now is for Interim Police Chief C.J. Davis to come out and give a moment-by-moment account of exactly what happened here.
Literally a TikTok, minute by minute.
Absolutely, a TikTok. They ought to be able to compile that, and they need to let the public know that. The public deserves that. And also, video, a body cam video. That needs to be released sooner rather than later because the public deserves to know this. I mean, obviously, I believe Officer McKinney is dead because of these two teenagers. That's why there were some additional charges on Friday. But the public deserves to know exactly what happened, and we haven't gotten that yet.
You agree with that, Chris?
Yeah, I think there needs to be a full public accounting, and I'm sure it will come in time. Obviously, that's going to affect the charges that the surviving culprit is charged with. But one thing that you did mention, and I want to come back to this, what precipitated this? So let's leave the law aside, whether the law was followed. I think it was. But just a common sense question. You have somebody who had a record when they were a juvenile of violent crime, who was found with stolen vehicles, who was found with a switch, which, if you don't know, it effectively converts a semi-automatic weapon to an automatic weapon, highly illegal. And somehow, somewhere, this person was back on the street that very evening without bond, with the signature of a judicial commissioner, and without, seemingly based on the tapes, the opposition of our district attorney's office. What is going on? I'm not trying to be hyperbolic. That is absolutely unacceptable, and it demands, like you said, an entire accounting. We need a play-by-play.
Well, that was
how did this happen, and why did it happen?
Yes, that was the big political dust-up of the week, is you had Steve Mulroy issuing in a statement the night of the shooting, saying we did not want Jalen Lobley, the 18-year-old who was also killed as a part of that shootout, we did not want him to be released on his own recognizance. Then we get the audio files, transcripts of what happened in that bond hearing, and find out that wasn't the case at all. That the assistant DA representing Steve Mulroy's office said he had no problem with the juvenile, or not juvenile, but Lobley getting released without bond. And then we will give Mulroy credit for backtracking and saying I was wrong and overstepped myself there. What are your thoughts?
Well, three things. One, I am absolutely certain that Chief Davis will come out with that blow-by-blow. I cannot get out of my head how she presented herself right after the incident, as well as Mary Young. They were both quite emotional, especially Chief Davis. So I'm absolutely certain she'll get to the bottom of it, and when it is all compiled and final, because I think it's a bad mistake to come out and give it piecemeal. So we know this now, and oh, we learned this later, so, but I'm certain she'll do it. Secondly, I think that Mulroy is just a mistake, man. I think Steve bit off more than he could chew in running for the position in the first place.
Well, he knew the TAC dogs were going to come after him.
But he bit off more. Steve had been a perennial candidate for a lot of positions. I just think he ran for one that he thought he could win. It's just my personal opinion. And I think he didn't realize it was going to be this kind of animal. So his political response immediately following, he shouldn't have. Why would you say anything at this point? So it's good that y'all call it walking back. I call it he realized he had lied, or whatever, however the street people refer. But thirdly, I have a niece who's a police officer who has been greatly impacted by the whole thing and had to follow the ambulance as it was carrying Officer McKinney to the med. Think about, of the 9 officers who have been laid off or suspended administrative leave, think about the impact psychologically that it has on the officers who were on the scene, officers who were not on the scene.
Absolutely.
This is an amazing thing.
Well,
People need
especially
to pray.
the Rains Road Station where McKinney was based, because all 13
Exactly.
officers that were on the
Yes.
scene were based there, and they're all
Yes.
relieved of duty or
Yes.
injured or dead.
Yes.
And so this is a huge strain on the department,
Yes.
I would think.
Yes.
Yeah.
Let's go back to these judicial commissioners, because this has been an education for all of us about just the extent of what they do, how many there are. We know there's more than a dozen that are under the watchful eye of Judge Bill Anderson, who's a General Sessions judge. And we have State Representative John Gillespie of Memphis accusing Judge Anderson of not doing his job, and the judicial commissioner who oversaw the case not doing his job, not following the spirit of the law, to which Bill Anderson vehemently disagrees. Let's watch that exchange from a story we had on ABC24 earlier this week.
That is not being followed right now. I do not have all the details, but I will say Judge Anderson won several judicial commissioners that are violating the spirit of the law.
He is dead wrong. So I have reached out to him to see if he will make an apology, and I expect an apology.
Wow. Wow.
You go first.
We've got a lot of problems here with this whole story. But one of the biggest problems here, we have people who are talking about each other and not talking to each other. And Gillespie said that he didn't have all the details. Well, if you don't have all the details, don't be making some accusations that you're not totally sure of.
Just like Steve Mulroy should have done.
Just like Steve Mulroy did the same thing. Chris, you made a good point earlier. The guy should never have been out on the streets. I agree with that 100%. And even being out on the streets, he was under a curfew that he obviously didn't abide by, because this happened at like 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. All of that is problematic. But again, I think we are having people like lawmakers and the judge and Steve Mulroy making statements prematurely here. They're just not talking to each other, and they're just making statements that's making the whole thing worse in my mind.
I think that's a fair point, but I will say this. The plural of anecdote is data. We have too many of these anecdotes, of these examples of violent criminals, their bail being set very low or being released without bail. This is happening over and over and over and over again. The plural is data. We see the trend line. In other major metro areas, crime is down 20%. This was in the New York Times or Wall Street Journal earlier this week. I don't know if you saw that.
Yes. Most cities
Not
don't.
in Memphis, Tennessee. And I'm not trying to dump on Memphis. I love this town. The question is, what are we doing wrong? We need a total and immediate reevaluation of the judicial commissioner system. Immediately.
I don't disagree with that. I agree with
And there are some people that may need to lose their jobs.
I don't disagree.
All
No,
right, well,
I don't.
You know, what's fascinating to me about the ongoing conversation is, you know, in the case of Jalen Lobley, when you listen to the full transcript of that hearing, they point out the fact that he had no prior record. He had confessed to the felonies of the car thefts and having the switch. He was a native Memphian. Therefore, they did not feel was a flight risk.
Well, he had no prior record. He had no prior adult record.
That's right.
And he's just 18. He hadn't had a chance to have
time
a record yet. I say, with all due respect to him and his mother, who has been talking lately, I believe if we had given him some time, he would have had an adult record. But that's beside the point. The nature of the crime should rule the day here. And there was also some statements at this Judicial Commission hearing where they were asking, well, can you extend the curfew so that he could be with his child? Well, why are you out at 2 o'clock in the morning if you wanted to be with your child? You had a chance to be with your child in a confined area to abide by the regulations of being released. He was not. He was in a suspicious vehicle. He had guns. I mean, he is the poster child for what you're talking about. I agree with what Chris is saying here.
Okay, I don't know how we can disagree here. All right, we're all nodding our heads. All right, very good. When we come back, we're going to talk about your tax dollars at work. 2 big pitches for your money. We'll talk about both of them right after this.